What's in the Box? Presented by Sure It'll Be Grand.
And welcome back, everybody, to a special review podcast thing we do here on What's in the Box, presented to you by Sure It'll Be Grand. Werewolf by Night by Marvel. Kevin's here with me.
I am,
Kevin.
yeah. Hi, hello, everyone.
I think the first thing to say is that this one snuck up on us, Kevin.
Yeah, like we were getting ready to watch She-Hulk yesterday, and we just opened up Disney Plus, and it said Werewolf by Night releasing tomorrow, and we're like, oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, it's an odd one. Because usually because we've only got the announcement like what 3 weeks ago or something like that.
It's like it was barely a month ago, you know.
And usually when Marvel announced something, it's like another 6 months, maybe a year before we see it. So I was like, oh, cool. I'll put that in the back shelf. That's fine. Don't look at the date. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
And unfortunately, that back shelf just kind of fell off and right into our laps.
Yeah. So, Werewolf by Night. I think it's fair to say most Marvel fans, especially the MCU, were just like, oh?
Yeah. I know I was, and here's the thing: I actually did know about Werewolf by Night as a character because when I was younger, I used to watch a shitload of like Marvel cartoons and stuff.
Yeah, and they always have someone showing up.
They do. My specific, he's probably appeared in other stuff, but I do remember him in the Ultimate Spider-Man show.
Yeah.
Because I think Nick Fury made a team of monsters, like monster superheroes, and he was on it. And he's also, other ones.
He's usually on teams of like monster-based things as well.
Yeah,
usually protecting the monsters from groups that hunt monsters. It's interesting. Who's the? Oh, sorry, because I'm in a totally different mindset. Who's the villain in Spider-Man who hunts animals in Spider-Man?
Craven. Craven is the villain.
Has Craven ever just gone on like, hey, I'm gonna hunt werewolves?
I really hope so, because that would make for a cool comic. I think Craven hunting a werewolf.
It would, yeah. Oh, vampires and all that. I guess vampires is not an animal. Well, bats, like in a way.
I mean, you say that he has no issue hunting Spider-Man.
Yeah, but Spider-Man's a spider.
But
spiders are animals.
Very clearly, he has no issue with the man part of that.
Yes, but it's fine as long as there's some animal rubbed in there, and the spider is there. So that's what he's about. That's his reasoning, isn't it?
In that case, vampires are like leech, bat, whatever,
Yeah, but look, I said that's what I'm kind of thinking, because otherwise, he would just try to hunt the strongest people, like Galactus. He'd hunt Galactus, then it wasn't animal based.
I mean, see, his whole thing is that he's just hunting the deadliest prey. I don't think it matters to him if it's animal or not.
Yeah,
he can hunt people.
Galactus could technically be a prey.
Yes, well, not to Craven.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it seems like animal has to be in there a little bit. He has the whole Tarzan Sahara vibe to him.
That's just theming. He has no problem breaking theme if it means he can hunt something.
Fair but anyway, let's get into Werewolf by Night.
Yes, so that's actually what we're talking about. So this isn't a new series. This isn't a movie. This is a TV special.
Yeah, it feels I would say it's like 2 Marvel episodes of pick any Marvel TV show. Really,
yeah.
It's roughly that size. It's about 50 minutes, isn't it? 55 minutes.
It's about it's just under the hour.
Yeah.
So it's like an episode and about half an episode, sewn together.
Absolutely.
And it feels like that, and I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah,
because I really enjoy this.
Oh, it smacked of that 1930s, 40s black and white cinema, Frankenstein, over the top acting. That's what this movie is.
That's exactly what it is. And I think, honestly, I would love if Marvel did more like this, where it's just we get an hour to spend in a different pocket of the universe.
Yeah.
I don't need these long series. I don't need a big movie dedicated to it. Just give me an hour about this niche character I didn't know much about.
Here's a question, and I had fun from the very start with this. When is it set?
Okay, yeah. This is a question, isn't it?
Now, I can tell you for sure from when on it could be set, and it's the 1980s onwards, because there are gravestones marked in 1980.
What were they marked at 1980?
There was one that was marked 1980. The rest are like early, like 1931, but one was marked 1980.
See, I saw one marked for the 1960s, so that was where I was going to go onwards from.
Yeah, and it does have some 1960 vibes there as well, you know, like classic black and white Doctor Who kind of vibes to it, you know?
Yeah. So 80s onward, it's a bit weird aesthetically for the 80s, I think, but it kind of works.
I would say this is set during modern times, because he has a little weapon that like is basically blows stuff up, and it's very sort of like
he has the
Iron
sticky,
Man stuff. Like
sticky
this is
grenade,
this is not like old school technology. You know that this has been around.
I'm willing to say that this isn't like maybe not modern. Like it could be a bit before, like not necessarily taking place concurrently with the rest of the movies. Is what I mean. It could be a bit before.
I mean, it might be. I think unless we have anything explicitly saying otherwise, I think it's probably set in the modern Marvel universe. Especially because they mentioned and named that, oh, you know about the big legends, and they showed the Avengers. Now hear about the other ones. You know, like it's weird if they just went, and we'll show you about the other ones 60 years ago. It's fine, don't worry about it.
It's like, and also like it only makes sense for it to be modern since they'll want to use this stuff, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like I was half saying, go on, mention Blade. Go on.
I know. I was waiting for them to drop Blade. Like they were all in the same room, and they're like, unfortunately, one person is unable to make it with us today. He had a prior engagement with a vampire cult or something.
Yeah, he has 200 kills underneath his belt or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Something funny like that.
Just like say Blade without saying Blade.
Yeah.
You know?
Then again, he probably wouldn't be part of that group anyway.
Probably.
You know?
I mean, they'd probably hunt him.
Yeah. That's actually a very fair point. They wouldn't want him in there anyway. The most gruesome... And we'll go into the story in a second. This is easily the most gruesome Marvel movie special. Like, it's like, okay, we've seen arms cut off and stuff like that before, whatever. We even seen, like, look, to be fair, we've seen Thor embedding an axe into Thanos' chest. You know, there are some stuff, but not visually gruesome. Like, you just kind of see him there, and it's there, but there's no blood, nothing, you know?
It's funny that you mention it, because, like, it's funny that you mentioned Thor specifically, because the only other thing I can think of for getting away with being as gruesome as this movie was is Thor: Love and Thunder, because it changed all the blood to gold.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Which I think is why they get away with it in this, because it's in black and white. So you don't see any blood. It's all black and white.
But no, you can't get away with it, because... we see at one stage a sword going into one of the monster hunters' heads, into her like forehead. It gets stuck about an inch in, and she gets knocked down to the ground. Like, that's the most gruesome thing, blood or not, that we've seen. In fact, I think if you had no blood at all in that scene, and we saw it embedded in her forehead, that would be worse.
I think, personally, for me, the worst one was... when the guy got like the arrow shot up through his mouth, and he was like the one was holding his mouth shut, stop him from screaming. That one was the most gruesome to me.
Yeah, no, that's very fair, and she is part of the Bloodstone line, and this is a lovely segue.
Yeah, so let's actually talk about the plot of this.
Ulysses Bloodstone has passed. He's this monster hunter who's a bit mental, who collected...
but he's a legend of monster hunters.
Yeah, he's
huge.
Yeah, he has like the biggest, most famous like heads of monsters all around his house. He owns a mansion, and he's like clearly nuts. We find out about that in a second. But he's died, and he has something called a bloodstone, something important that's meant to be handed down. We don't know yet what happens to it. We find out later on in the episode, but you know. But so people are arriving. We have people like Barossa, who I was like, his clothing, I'm like, are you from Wakanda? You look kind of like... I don't want to assume you're from Wakanda because you're black, but, like, your clothes kind of look Wakanda-ish. And, like, you know, you have some pretty nice fades, which kind of remind you of Wakanda kind of fades, you know? He didn't have the accent. But then again, Warmonger was able to go between his accents as well, so who knows?
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of... They introduced. Did you actually get names off them? Because I didn't. I don't remember any of the other hunters' names.
I have IMDb open in front of me, and I recognize. Oh,
IMDb named them. That makes sense.
We have. I think the first one we really talked to is Jovan. He is this big.
Jovan. He's the big Scottish.
Yeah. He digs Jack Russell, who's the main character in this special.
That name. Don't worry about it. It's definitely not a pun.
Yeah, we'll get to that pun. But yeah, he digs Jack Russell because Jack has all these like tattoos and scarification jobs on his face, and
I think it's just face paint.
Are you tattoos. Sure?
I think it was like partially washed away in the end.
Okay, I thought they were actual. Okay, fair enough.
So I think it was face paint.
Okay, but no harm anyway, and because he mentions like, oh, usually we're alone and all this kind of stuff, but I really dig that you have it out in the open. That's cool, you know. And he's the first one to say, yeah, Ulysses was a bit mental, wasn't he? Crazy bastard. Yeah. And he kind of goes around the room and says, have you, are any of these heads because of you that you caught him? And no, and he points to like a weird vampire head. And again, folks, tell us who the vampire is because I have no idea. But Jack says, I've fought him a couple of times. You know, he actually looks more alive now than he's ever been done before. You know?
I've looked some stuff up about this. So that vampire head was more than likely Nosferatu. Not the Nosferatu, but rather the race of Nosferatu vampires, which are like ancient vampires.
Yeah.
So that's probably what that is.
Do you have any more monsters?
The main monsters that you look around, more than likely, the ones that we see are the Wendigo, which is a notable bad guy for both Hulk and Wolverine. Because it stalks around Canada apparently, and the Sasquatch, which it isn't really too big a monster in Marvel. There's a guy who can turn into a Sasquatch. And he calls himself Sasquatch as his code name, but he's not really like a Sasquatch, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, werewolves aren't really wolves either, you know. But you know, no harm anyway. We see some other people there. We see Azarel. She is the lady in white clothing with the really impressive like structures of her head. Like she's a very angular face.
Yeah, I was looking at her and I'm like, are you secretly a monster? And I felt so bad. And at the end of the episode, she wasn't. Because I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that you were just a human.
Yeah. We have Leorn, who is the Asian looking dude. Who is the third best killer in the group.
I think that's the most notable thing about him in this.
Yeah. He has a cool wrist. Pew.
He doesn't actually have that because he has to pick that up later.
Oh yeah,
because of the rules of the hunt, which we'll get to in a moment.
Yeah, and then we have Verusa, who seems to be the stepmother and former lover. I should rephrase that. She's the stepmother of another character in this story,
and the former lover of Ulysses Bloodstone.
Yes.
She wasn't stepmother and lover of Bloodstone. That would be fucking weird.
To be fair, after you see Ulysses and you do, and you see how she operates, wouldn't be the weirdest thing.
Yeah. Speaking of, should we talk about Ulysses?
No, I think we should talk about Elsa first.
Oh yes, we didn't talk about Elsa.
Yeah. Ulysses' daughter. She is here, like she seems to want to claim her birthright, but also not really. And at this stage, she's had such a distance from the family that Varus is just like, you don't deserve it, but yeah, you're legally allowed to at least be part of the challenge, which all these assassins are here for.
Yeah. Actually, while we're here, will I say they say a little bit about who Ulysses and Elsa are in the comics.
He has a good spot. Obviously,
Because
Ulysses is a father and daughter.
Yeah, they're father and daughter.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to say about Ulysses in the comics, he is completely fucking different than he is in this show.
Yeah.
Because in this show he's like this famed monster hunter, but in the comics he's still a famed like monster hunter / mercenary, but he's also a caveman that's been alive for 10,000 of years because he's got an alien artifact called the blood gem in his chest.
That sounds very familiar to a certain DC villain.
Yeah, it's not too dissimilar from one Vandalus Savage.
Yeah. Really, I mean, I'm sure the execution is much different.
Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. He's got like a long ass history. Yeah. So I didn't get to read all of it before this because I don't know shit about most of these characters.
Yeah, I'm going to be real with you. Except for a character that comes up later on, and we'll say it now, Man-Thing. I don't really know anyone here.
Yeah.
You know.
But his daughter, Elsa Bloodstone, she eventually Ulysses actually does die in the comics, I believe.
Yeah.
And she inherits the Bloodstone.
Yeah.
And she is basically Marvel's, like, from what I can understand from this, and from like general consensus, she is Marvel's attempt at Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay.
In that she's like this teenage monster hunter dealing with teenage monster hunter problems.
Yeah. Okay. Some hot vampires are, and she's like, "Damn, I can't have sex with you, but I will."
Probably. I didn't look too deeply into it, but that's the gist of what I got. Yeah. There is a cool image though of her with a fucking guitar over her shoulder that is like making me want to read comics that she's in.
And we'll show it to the viewers right now. That is pretty cool, everyone, isn't it?
I'm psychically projecting an image of her with a guitar over her shoulder to you.
Yeah.
Think about it. You've got it.
There we go. We should mention, I think it's a thing we haven't mentioned yet. All of this is in black and white.
Yes, this movie is in black and white.
Yeah.
And it's in black and white except for one thing, and that is the Bloodstone is red.
Exactly.
Which is a cool little detail, and I don't know what it means story-wise.
I want to get into Ulysses, though.
Yes, let's talk about Ulysses, because he's completely different from what I just said about him in the comics.
So, they roll him up. They said he couldn't be here in spirit, but he'll be here in another way, or something along the lines of that. And there's this beautiful moment when the camera kind of goes around his coffin, quite clearly is a coffin, and we go behind, and it just has an arrow at the back, like on a crate, saying "this way up."
I like when I saw that, I was like, "What is it?" Like, I thought for a second that was implying that he's not dead, and this is actually his ploy to hunt them all down or something.
Yeah.
Like I thought, it's a fake coffin, and they just didn't bother painting the back of it.
I mean, I guess because eventually he gets opened like a Jack-in-the-Box with just this old fella, and I believe his name is Billy Swan, the character.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong. Please tell me if I am. And it opens up, and he's basically a marionette at this stage. He turned his body into a puppet, his dead body, which makes you think maybe they did have to send it off with a crate. It was someone made him into a puppet, and then he got delivered back in the crate, and then they just like, oh yeah, there's the coffin now. Lovely.
See, it's not even like a fucking puppet. It's a proper like wind up animatronic thing, because he has to keep turning it so even the sound comes out of it.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Five Nights at Freddy's to like come back and actually do something like this. Anyway, don't tell me they do, because we don't need to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. Excuse me.
I don't want to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's during this.
Leave that to Matt Pat. Anyway. So he comes along and he says, blah, 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 I am a weirdo, a few grave puns. And he says, Ferusa, his dead lover, well, she's the living lover.
His lover, who is not dead, but he is dead.
Yeah, she seems to almost want to have sex with him on the spot, even though he's this weird marionette thing going on. And
she'd probably think it was reciprocal.
Yeah. And
Even though she's
he talks about how there will be a challenge. There will be a monster that's going to be on their estate that has to be hunted, and that the Bloodstone is on the back of it, and that's how they'll win if they can get that, and that there are no rules. Everyone can go out for everyone, and it's survival of the fittest. And anyone who does die is respected. Blah blah blah. But whatever. And I think this is actually the weakest part for me when they just kind of go in. There's a few fight scenes that I liked everything after the big battle royale and everything before, but I'll let you continue from here.
So basically there's a big ceremony where they're just outside the maze.
Yeah.
And there's a guy with a flaming tuba. Yeah. Don't know why the tuba's on fire, but it's a hell of an aesthetic choice.
It just gives me like My Chemical Romance music video vibes, to be honest.
It feels like a music video at this point. And there's actually a really good scene where you get where Jack walks into the maze as the tuba's playing. He walks around for a bit, and then you hear the tuba again, and it cuts to someone else having entered the maze. Yeah. They walk, the tuba goes, and that continues for each of them.
Yeah.
I like that because it's using the tuba as a signifier to say this is where they got before the next person entered.
Yeah.
I like that. And they're not allowed to bring their own weapons in, so they have to find weapons scattered around the place. I don't think we ever see either of our two main characters find their weapons.
No, they use some other weapons, but it's not... Well, they do kind of have weapons. Like, we see Elsa, eventually she breaks into a tomb and uses her dead aunt's weapon later on. And we also see her using the bow and arrow thing that, was it Leorn, I think, found?
Yeah, he had, basically he was hiding in the tomb and was waiting for someone to appear so that he could, like, snipe them down with, like, arrows.
Yeah, we've all played online Call of Duty.
Yes. I don't know why he thought you could camp while monster hunting.
Yeah.
It explains why he's the third best.
Yeah. Because we should say Jack has the highest rate, by the way. It's like 100.
Yes. He has 100 confirmed kills.
Yeah, and everyone's just like, monsters. Really? You know what? I like that. They weren't all haughty killers. They just went, wow, really? That's pretty cool. I was like, yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a lot of respect for people who can kill. But once they're in the maze, they're ready to fucking gun you down.
Yeah, they're hunters. They don't care. And I feel like we get the... Well, I will talk about Jack soon. Go on.
Yeah, so the main two that we're following in the maze are Jack and Elsa.
Yeah.
Jack is, like, you can kind of get the feeling he's not looking for a weapon or anything. He's not looking to fight. He's actually actively avoiding fighting anyone.
Yeah. And it's weird because we hear how many people he has killed. Or he claimed, at least that's what the record does. So you almost think, like, so what's his technique? If it's not straight out murder, like, what's the deal with him? Like, is there something else going on?
Yeah, and then while we're seeing him skulk around, Elsa is actively getting into fights with people.
Yeah.
And using... She's murdering people. She just cuts off a guy's arm and then fucking shoots him in the throat with it, like I said before. And then another guy's coming up and she knows that she can't fucking win against him straight up for some reason.
Jovan,
so she rolls...
Yeah,
so she rolls like herself and the corpse into a bush, covers his mouth while he's bleeding from the throat, and waits for, like, Jovan to pass by. And I think, fucking hell, that's brutal.
Yeah, it is. She's literally holding a dying man's mouth closed. You know, he's going to die. There's no way around it. And she's
there's no ifs, ands, or buts on that one.
It's a mechanical thing for her. This is not an emotional based thing. It's like, no, I have to do this, survive this, and off we go. She gets out of that, and eventually she gets hunted by Azrael, the woman in white, and oh wait, no,
you're skipping over a few things. So Azrael actually doesn't really come into it for a bit. So what happens is, she actually injures her leg at this point, so she hides in the tomb.
Yeah,
and we go back to Jack, who goes up. He's lurking around, and he eventually he finds the monster hiding in a hedge.
Yeah.
And he just has a conversation with it.
I like it because the monster reaches out and grabs him with his hand for a second. And to be honest, first when you first see the hand, you're almost thinking, oh, that looks kind of werewolfy. Like it's gnarled and like twisted human looking hand. And I almost like, oh, this is the werewolf that is by night, I guess. And you see Jack laugh and just, oh, it's you. And it, for some reason, it gave me Addams Family vibes. Like there's like Addams Family, like black and white Addams Family would just laugh at a monster grabbing it and be just, oh, this is great, you know.
It's the werewolf by night.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he starts talking to him and calls him Ted. And Ted is Man-Thing.
The Man-Thing, yes. Yeah. I really like that they actually called him Ted because
that's his name.
That's who he is in the comic.
Because he was just a guy who was driving his car. He crashed into the swamp and turned into Man-Thing.
Actually, in the comics, it's actually there's an extra layer onto that.
It might have come later on. I think that was the original origin story, anyway.
Well, he injected himself with his own super soldier serum and crashed into a mystical swamp. He got a Captain America origin. Yeah. And a Doctor Strange origin, and it fucked him up.
Yeah, so make sure, folks, that if you don't just crash into a swamp. Just make sure you have those two things as well.
Please only expose yourself to one superhero origin story at a time.
Absolutely. Like, don't just, like, get bitten by a spider while, I don't know, being next to a nuclear explosion.
Radioactive acid is being thrown in your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But yeah. It seems like they're on good terms, and he talks, does it hurt? And we see that the stone is impaled on his back. He said, don't worry, I'll get you out of here. I have this little, I think, does he have the explosive thing, or is he given it by Man-Thing?
I don't remember where he got the explosive.
He has an explosive thing.
I feel like they might have skipped over that part.
I guess he was able to maybe smuggle in because it doesn't look like an explosive.
Maybe. But he doesn't know how to use it. No, he doesn't. Is the thing.
And he's told how to use it as well.
Yeah.
By
Elsa.
Does Elsa give it to him now?
Maybe. So basically, he hears someone coming, so he runs away before they can find Man-Thing. And he ends up locking himself in the crypt with Elsa.
Yeah.
Who is the only person so far who hasn't tried to kill him.
Yeah.
And who he hasn't. They realize neither of them are a threat to each other because they don't.
He makes it, but hey, look, I don't want to kill you. That's not my kind of thing. And okay, all right, we won't. It's fine.
Yeah. He helps her with an injured leg, and they make a deal because he doesn't want the Bloodstone, and she doesn't really care about killing the monster. She just wants the Bloodstone.
Yeah.
So they make a deal. She's going to help him get Man-Thing out of there, and he'll give her the Bloodstone.
Yeah. And he says that if you do bump into him, just call him Ted and like act like you're his old friend, and things will be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But before that, they go through. They need to get out because they lock themselves into the tomb as well. It's automatically locked, and she starts thinking about her crazy aunt, who her father said would one day awaken and grab her and pull her back to the grave, or something along the lines of that. And the thing is, it was more than that. The aunt was actually kind of like that. She said she would come back one day. And
she was so convinced that she was going to come back that in her coffin she requested to have keys to the tomb and a weapon.
Yeah. And she breaks in and gets everything out of there, and they're able to escape with the key. And then things go a bit more hectic at this stage, I think.
Yeah, so she so basically they go over the plan. He says, go find Ted, bring him over here. And she's like, okay, you go over, there's a wall with a crack in it, you can use the explosive there. And he's like, how do I turn on the explosive? And he fucking twists it and it turns on. And I will say, this explosive probably has the longest fuse I have ever seen on on a movie explosive.
Yeah, I think she made a point that it had to be activated by like sticking it to a wall and twisting it, and he throws it. And
I think no, she actually told him throw it to the wall and it will stick.
Okay, but I think because it didn't stick, that's why it didn't blow at first.
Maybe.
Yeah,
but sure, he doesn't end up sticking it anyway.
Also,
because
it's weird that they have an explosive that you need to throw to stick. Wouldn't it just be better to one that you stick and then you could like throw yourself away?
Yeah, it's a very weird explosive.
Yeah.
I think at this point C4 does the same job.
Yeah. Though harder to smuggle in, I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he runs off to find a crack in the wall. She goes to find Ted.
Yeah.
And she meets up with our favorite Scottish grump, who gets immediately fucking destroyed by Ted in the bushes.
Jovan.
Basically Ted just grabs him in the head
and just magic Cthulhu stuff.
Magic burns his head or something.
It just the whole thing gets just melted. It's just like light comes from his hand and he goes. Again, I know Man-Thing because he's appeared in other comics with other more I don't want to say popular, but more famous comic book characters. So like, I don't really know much about what Man-Thing does by himself. Honestly, I mix him up a lot with the Green from the DC.
Oh yeah, Swamp Thing.
Yeah, Swamp Thing. Yeah, and the Green.
I think. Do you think it might be acid?
No, it's too holy. It's like magical. Like this, it's just pure magic.
Maybe, but like it's such a weird ability to have him.
Well, okay, if it's like the superhero serum, remember that was energized by like solar space rays. So maybe it's just a release of those.
Wait, what? Solar space?
Okay,
the superhero, like the Captain America theory.
Yeah, serum. Because remember, he is in a pod after he gets in the injection, and he gets lighted up.
I mean, I guess.
I mean, if we want to take that as part of the origin, it's good as anything. I think it's just magic, to be honest with you, man.
I've never really thought about like the fact that the pod lights up.
Yeah, no, they even mention it. Like they're like pouring light onto him. Like it's how the process works.
I just never thought about it like that. I guess so. Yeah, see, I would have thought. See, yeah, I'm not 100% sure. He does a thing with his hand. The guy's head burns off. You know.
Yeah, I think it's probably some sort of magical stuff. But never mind. What happens next?
Next she calls him Ted, and he's like, "Oh, well, he doesn't speak, but
he does speak. She doesn't understand."
He's like he speaks in grunts and stuth.
Yeah, Jack understands him.
Yeah, Jack knows. And
he's R2-D2.
I think Chewbacca is probably a better example because of the giant.
Last time I checked, Chewbacca can't shoot like weird energy thing, and R2-D2 can shock people. So, just saying.
I mean, it depends on your definition of shoot weird energy thing, because he does have the bowcaster.
Yeah, but that's not part of him. Whereas
it's a part of his action figures off map, you know.
Yeah, but it's not part of his character. It's just a thing he picks up.
Oh yeah, you heard it here first. The bowcaster is not a part of Chewbacca's character. Star Wars fans, begin your rioting.
I think that's like the least aggravating thing any Star Wars fan has said in the last.
And yet, it will still cause a turmoil.
No, I think Chewbacca should be acted by a woman. That'll get them going.
Oh, so you weren't happy with how little I had stoked the flames, so you wanted to do it.
I'd love if I had thousands of people giving out about Star Wars in the comments.
Okay,
that'd be amazing. Please do that. Anyway, Werewolf by Night.
Best thing about Chewbacca being played by a woman, you might never know. Anyway,
very good point. Very good point. No, Life Day of the Christmas special, we don't count it. Even though it has been referenced in The Mandalorian.
I count it. I count it as canon. It's my canon.
Have you watched it? Have you watched it?
I've watched a lot of clips.
You can just watch it on YouTube.
Is it on YouTube in full?
Yeah.
maybe I'll watch it and subject myself to a torture unimaginable.
Well, we'll up and down to sure be grand anyway.
Wait for Christmas, then we'll watch it. But yeah, where were we? Yeah, so Elsa and Man-Thing start running through the maze to meet up with Jack. Jack is fumbling with a bomb. Everyone is running towards each other. The wall explodes. Man-Thing escapes. They get the blood gem off his back. The other hunters arrive. Elsa reaches for it. Jack reaches for it, and it explodes.
Oh, it doesn't really actually skipped a massive amount of stuff about her not being attacked yet. The hunter. Yeah. Sorry, never mind. Go on.
So Jack tries, after Man-Thing escapes and the blood gem is taken out of his back, Jack reaches for the gem and it bursts in energy. It's still intact, but an energy bursts from it and he gets knocked around the wall and all the hunters see it.
Yeah, and it's that only attacks bad people.
Yeah, not even that attacks bad people, that only attacks monsters.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the whole story, Kevin, about this entire show so far is that they're all just still people with monster parts as part of them, the real monsters are the hunters. That's the whole story. I
realize that. However, they are called monsters. That's their
monsters.
Their differentiation.
The monsters themselves are no, not really. We're fine.
But Jack himself calls himself a monster.
But he doesn't though. He says, "I'm human first." He has something attached to it. He makes that explanation, and I mean,
but he calls Man-Thing the monster.
Yeah, but that's because he has to say it because people don't understand otherwise. He says just treat him like a normal person as well.
I think it's just a classification thing. I don't think it's that big deal.
I think it is. Don't disenfranchise people who have mythical curses on them, all right?
I'm sorry. All of our fans who have mythical curses, I'm sorry if I disenfranchised you.
As a diabetic, I thank you.
Diabetes is not a mythical curse.
Yes, it is. That's what I'm sticking to. No, excuse me, do you have diabetes? No opinions, Kevin.
Give it 3 weeks. I can get diabetes if I try hard enough. Anyway.
Yeah, you've just been slacking.
Anyway, I don't know what we were doing there.
I love I can say something terrible about disease because I have it. It's very freeing.
Meanwhile, I am going to be destroyed.
Yes. Anyway, yes. They end up in a cage, and he says, "Hey, don't worry about it. I don't become a monster for another 5 days." And she's just like, "You're an idiot. They're going to turn you into one in 2 minutes." And he's just like, "All right, that's a bad idea. I'm going to start sniffing you."
Which is weird, but he explains it and it makes sense.
Still kind of weird.
It's very weird, but he's just trying to get her scent in his mind so that he remembers her in wolf form.
Yeah, because and she asks him, "Has that ever helped?" And he goes, "Once." And which makes me think this is not the last time we have seen Werewolf by Night. We'll probably get more specials in future. Maybe just Halloween specials.
I'd love to see if they just do Halloween specials that are just expanding on the monster side of the universe,
Yeah, I'm very cool with it. Also, again, another weird question: is S.H.I.E.L.D. doing anything about these people?
What S.H.I.E.L.D. knows and doesn't know about is becoming more and more of a problem in universe.
And I mean, I feel like this is probably even not S.H.I.E.L.D.'s domain usually, because they probably just this is probably Strange's domain more than anything.
Yeah,
because it's magic related, Another fucking magic stone, as if this universe needed another one.
Yeah, I was actually I went into this and my mind immediately thought, oh, this probably takes place in sometime in the 1900s, before we had any dates mentioned.
Yeah. Frankenstein era.
This maybe takes place in some time in the 1900s, between maybe 1920, maybe 1960, maybe 1980, somewhere in that range. Because of all the random technology you see.
Yeah.
But also, because of that, I thought there was a possibility, there was a slight chance that the Bloodstone was going to end up being the Reality Stone.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I thought about it for half a second, but I kind of went, then look, that era's over,
Yeah, like I thought. Well, like here's the thing: that year's over, but I thought this was set in the past. You know.
Well, I mean, like
So,
era, as in the MCU. They're not going to jump back onto this kind of stuff anytime soon.
I know, yeah, but like, if you're looking into the past, you can reuse those elements without bringing it back. You know. I didn't really hold on to the thought too much because obviously the Reality Stone is hidden in a weird, slight pocket dimension somewhere in London.
It makes you think, though, like, if it was a Reality Stone, why would it affect monsters? Is it because monsters are, like, an outside universe source? Corruptions from outside? Because that's usually how we see it. It's the supernatural. It's the thing that's beyond the norm, beyond our reality. So if it was, just it's not. But I kind of like to play with the idea now, like, maybe the Reality Stone would almost, like, attack anything that doesn't belong in this universe. Because, like, hey, whoa, what the fuck's this? I'm the Reality Stone. I'm in charge of reality. Stop that.
Well, actually, like when I was thinking about it, this is before he touched it and it revealed he was a monster. I thought,
what did you call him?
When it touched him and revealed he was a werewolf,
that's acceptable. Yeah.
I thought that what they were going to do is they're going to realize, oh, he released Man-Thing. So we're going to use it to turn him into something. I thought that was what was going to happen, but then I realized, it literally can't be the Reality Stone. Like, even if this is, like, before, that shit's hidden away, and if it wasn't hidden away, the Dark Elves would be on their ass.
Yeah. So again, the Dark Elves are kind of like a weird monster fantasy vibe thing going on as well.
Yeah. I mean,
here's the thing I say. Here's what I think about this. Like, there was probably some cross-pollination way back when these things were invented in the first place. And even in the production for this, they probably, not even on purpose, just took some ideas from the Infinity Stones. Like, you can't do the MCU and talk about a stone that has magical power and not be at least subconsciously affected by it when you're writing a story for it.
Yeah, like, you know? It's going to be, and unless this is the fucking continuity stone from the comics,
it's no,
it's not that.
No,
it just can't be an Infinity Stone, unfortunately.
Honestly, we probably shouldn't have talked about it as much as we did. It's not.
But like, speaking on things that like it can't be, let's talk about something about this. And it's like, we don't actually get told much of anything about the werewolf curse.
No, and this is where I can come in a little bit. So, Jack Russell.
Yes.
Jack Russell. Yeah. He is in the first issue he appears in, it's basically said he just literally is about to turn 18 the next day, right? And he turns into a werewolf instead. So I guess he's the original Teen Wolf. This is 1971 comic issues. And
does it make him good at basketball?
I only read an issue or two. They didn't get to the high school basketball part of it. Plus, because he turns 18, I guess he's only barely a teen. But yeah, it turns out that like his mother is married to his now stepfather, but turns out his original father was a baron, and then in later comics it turns out he was a baron, he was a magician, and he was, you know, a foreign man, and everyone in his family line has been cursed to turn into a werewolf when they turn 18 the night before. Which is interesting that they can time it for a full moon, because that's when he turns as well. Though later on, this way where he gets some help, I think the All in 3 or something, this is an entity that gives him the ability to turn into a werewolf anytime he wants and keep his mind, except once a week when the werewolf persona brain takes over. He's been in contact with a few people. He's been in contact with even like Iron Man and all that kind of stuff. And like I mentioned, he was on a team with Morpheus to protect themselves against Monster. Not
Morpheus. Morbius.
Morbius. Oh, so you know what? They're probably from the same bloody root language anyway. So they're probably mean the same bloody thing.
but it's less fun to say it's morphin time.
Morpheus. Yeah, let's
wait.
Not get
it's morphin. That's Power Rangers.
Yeah,
wait a minute.
Well, yeah, because it's morphing. Morph. What do you think Morpheus does?
When I heard it's Morbin time, my brain didn't like process any possible Power Rangers reference. I'm going to be 100% honest.
See, I think of Morbius, it's because first it's morbid, but it's also that he morphs, so it's like a play on both. Anyway, doesn't matter. And yeah, that's kind of his origin. He's part of a cursed line of people who turn into werewolves.
Yeah. They don't really talk about that kind of stuff in this special.
I know, okay. Because
I'm fine with them not telling us about the werewolf curse. Okay. They can tell us about that later, but
I feel like there's still some listeners. His name is Jack Russell, like a dog. He turns into a werewolf. All right.
They didn't get it by now.
Yeah, just in case some people don't know Jack Russell's a breed. Not everyone's into dogs. That's it, folks. Okay.
I was looking up like the characters and stuff in this so I could learn more about them before we did the podcast, and I looked up Jack Russell, and I'm like, fuck, Jack Russell Marvel.
Oh, how many times has that happened to me with Google in general? Just like you Google something, like, oh, it's a pun. Anyway, from this thing, all right.
Yeah,
like I would tell you, have a fun time trying to make any memes about Doctor Who. Because you say, the Doctor doing this from this scene, and it'll just be a guy in a lab coat going, hi.
But yeah, so it's after this point, the hunters all come in their the surviving hunters come in their cultish robes and start casting a ritual to force him into his werewolf form.
Yes.
And his werewolf form, it's very evocative of the classic I believe it's 1924 Wolfman.
Yeah, I mean, a big thing they do is that we see his body writhing, but the thing that's a reference is like in the back we see lightning and his silhouette morphing as well. And I kind of feel, I guess, we now have the CG to show a 3D model actually writhing and turning and screaming in agony. For real, we don't need to have it as a silhouette and then just get some dude dressed up as a werewolf. But I kind of wish they just stuck with just looking at the silhouettes against the wall a bit. Like, we don't really see him all that much as the werewolf. We see him move and we see him when he
flashes. A lot of time.
The only time when we actually see him, like, during the fight is at the end when he's over Elsa, and Elsa is looking him in the eye, and he seems to recognize her, and he won't hurt her. We see his face, but otherwise, it's flashes of a wild beast going around tearing things apart.
Yeah, and when we do get a good look at him, looks very much like the humanistic version of a werewolf. You know, a flat face, covered in hair. It's very Teen Wolf.
It's Teen Wolf, and it's not like Teen Wolf is fun, but it's very much in that kind of nature, you know.
Yeah, and that's exactly what like his wolf form looks like in the comics.
Yeah.
And I just have to say, I'm a huge fan of werewolves. I love werewolves. They're probably my favorite type of monster. I really am not a huge fan of flat-face werewolves.
He looks definitely more like a de-evolved human. Like there's this monkey nature to him. Like it just looks like a human that still has a bit of the fangs and happens to have wolf ears. Otherwise, it could just be an ancestor to a human being and be like, yeah, that looks about right.
I'm super happy they were able to get that costume done like correctly, as practically as they could, you know? Yeah. Because like that's super important for the kind of movie this is. Yeah. I just kind of wish it looked more like a wolf.
I also kind of dig because it's done in black and white, and there's definitely some Gaussian blur to the entire thing. You know, there's a bit of a soft blur to everything. The CG they had around him, and even like Man-Thing, didn't stick out all that much. Like the black and white and the blur kind of hid it. You know,
yeah, it hit it decently, you know.
And because we had like, you know, almost cartoonish like lightning when he was being turned into the lycanthrope, like it kind of works. It's that black and white era of over the top. It's almost silent movie-esque, like special effects, you know.
Yeah. I really appreciated the lengths they did to make this look like an old movie.
Yeah.
They even, like, if you notice, they put cigarette burns on it.
They do. Yeah.
Which is such a nice touch. It's such a nice little unneeded touch that they put in there, you know?
Yeah. No, it's a love letter for sure.
Very much.
And I hope we see Marvel do more of this kind of stuff, not just for this era, but other eras. Like, I mean, again, I have friends who've listened to this, who somehow feel WandaVision was terrible for the first 3 episodes and only got better post 3. So for people who have forgotten about WandaVision or haven't watched it themselves, like the first 3, we really don't get told anything about it. So it's mostly all in the little universes of TV shows she's reenacting. So like, they're replicating black and white era, they're replicating like 70s era stuff. And it's fun that Marvel can do that from a time we go back to like the first Iron Man movie and the Hulk movies. Everything was still fairly grounded in reality, cinematography wise, and very straight laced and that kind of stuff. I like that Marvel can now go like, hey, let's just fucking mess around with what this looks like. You know,
I love when Marvel gets experimental.
Yeah,
because they don't do it nearly enough.
Yeah.
You know,
again,
we got a good few episodes of WandaVision that are quite experimental. We got Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness, where Sam Raimi tricked Marvel into letting him make a Sam Raimi movie.
And it was such a great time. I genuinely think it's one of my favorite Marvel movies in a long while.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
And we got fucking and we got this. This is all like really cool experimental stuff, you know?
So I have been looking around and like, but people aren't the biggest fan of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. People kind of were bored with the first 3 episodes of WandaVision. So this is why some studios like Marvel, like, don't get me wrong, some studios are just lazy and just want to make a quick buck and they do what works exactly. But that's why sometimes they don't bother experimenting, because there is a decent chunk of people that want their bread and butter. They don't want things that go a little bit weird and experimental. And it's a shame.
Let's be completely honest. There's a reason we're getting an Avatar 2. You know?
Yeah, and there's a reason we're getting live action Avatar the animated series. As well.
You know, like people will buy what they've already been sold.
Yeah,
you know.
And look, I don't want to shit on these people because entertainment is different for everyone. And if this works for them and that's what they want, they don't want anything more than another 3 Iron Man movies the way we've had Iron Man. Fair enough. Fair play. That's your preference. But as someone who probably, you know, I mean, I do a podcast, takes too much media in, these little quirky things that they try, like She-Hulk. She-Hulk is very different to anything Marvel has done before, even though it's not perfect. And, you know, other shows have, in non-fantasy or sci-fi ways, have done better, like, drama about women. It's nice to see within the Marvel Universe, we have that flavor of superheroes, but they messed around with it a bit. And I just want to change the formula, and I'm glad to have it.
Yeah, like I'd rather watch, like, just genuinely speaking, I would rather watch something that tried to do something new and interesting but failed than something that is just by the numbers completely.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And again, there's a reason why I watched Falcon and Winter Soldier once and have never a plan to watch it again.
And again, I think it's because, you know, Marvel has now done it in a way that people can get involved at different levels. Like, you can just watch the odd Marvel movie every few years in cinema, and that'll work for you. You don't need to actually pay attention to continue to as much. Yes, Marvel has now really broadened up and has loads more movies, but they're less connected now in important... Like, unless you're going to go and watch the Avengers movie. And even then, I think the next few Avengers movies aren't going to have much involved with things building up to it. Because I'm trying to think of things building up now to the, you know, Secret Wars and stuff. And, like, bar, like, having, you know, some aliens appear in, like, WandaVision and stuff, it's not the main plot.
Yeah.
So
honestly, the Secret Wars stuff, I think, is mainly going to be handled with the Nick Fury show coming up soon.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's what I mean. Like, it's everything is still part of the same world, but it's disconnected enough where they can experiment, which is, again, it's a thing I've been kind of shouting at the DC universe, like, the cinema universe. You don't have to have everything connected. You don't have to have a universe, to be honest. I would prefer standalone DC stuff.
I want to like interrupt here. Like yes, 100%. DC does not have to connect their shit together that much. I actually like the direction DC is heading in, where their shit is less connected. Now, I have no idea what the fuck they're doing now. All of their movies seem to be tragedy after tragedy. The only one coming up right now that doesn't seem steeped in horrible shit is fucking Shazam 2.
Yeah.
That's the only one I can't think of a notable disaster with. And
I kind of wonder why they're waiting so long with Shazam, because the kid must be like, what, Shazam came out 2 years ago now? 3 years ago?
3 years, yeah.
Yeah, like the kids grow fast at that age.
Yeah,
like he's not going to be Billy.
The people who made Stranger Things.
Well, I suppose one thing I'd say just before we go back to Werewolf by Night, Billy Batson in this, like, Billy is a lot less childlike than his Shazam alternative in the movie. Like, Shazam alternative doesn't act like Billy in the movie at all.
Yeah,
Anyway.
They probably could have got that quicker. But the reason I wanted to talk about that is because I think one of the things that DC has good is that, like, more so than Marvel, their directors are more evident, I guess is the correct word. Like, you can feel the director's influence more, whereas a lot of Marvel movies feel quite similar. Only one recently I can think of that batched that was Doctor Strange. Like, it felt like such a Sam Raimi movie.
I would point you to the television show, Sam, because Miss Marvel felt very, very different to most Marvel properties as well.
I do want to say I'm mostly talking about the movies in that regard.
Well, I think at this stage we can't just mostly talk about what I think they both have presence now and directions within the MCU. So I think the TV shows is obviously their experimental grounds. This is where they play around with ideas, letting directors do what they want and that kind of stuff. And probably in future we might get more Marvel movies that are a little less Marvel movie. I
really fucking hope so, because like this experimental shit, stretch it out a bit. You can probably fit some more stuff in there. I
mean, look at Thor: Love and Thunder. I know some people probably loved it, but I thought it was tragically bad. But to be fair, it's also the most what TT has ever TT'd.
Yeah, like even more so than Ragnarok.
Oh, 100 times more. There's more studio control in Ragnarok. But these felt like the TT movie about Hitler following the kid around. Like, it was just that quirky and weird. And maybe there should have been some studio control. Anyway.
Yeah, that one needed a bit more.
But yeah, let's go back to Werewolf by Night anyway. There's not much left.
There isn't much left to talk about.
She, the mother, the stepmother, Verusa, tries to kill Elsa. Because she says, "You ruin everything, and I was just trying to kill you in a way that keeps my hand not bloody, so my husband would feel okay with me killing you." She's deranged, right?
Completely, yeah.
And this is after, like, to be fair, Elsa has attacked her in the back with the auntie's weapon, and she's about to shoot, and the werewolf comes out, and it's not the werewolf, the thing. No,
man thing
comes out of nowhere and beats him up. This is just after Jack Russell has been ran off after tackling Elsa.
he stares down Elsa, doesn't kill her, he seems to recognize her and runs off.
Yeah, and Man Thing's just kind of standing there, and he's just like, and says, "Oh, he's that way." And do you want to know something really interesting? They are 2 voice actors for Man Thing from this.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, Carrie Jones and Jeffrey Ford. Just
hey, those names kind of sound familiar, but I can't quite play it.
He played Black Chrysanthemum. You know the in Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, he's a Wookiee. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's so he was in that. I guess he's more of a voice actor than anything, and maybe he was on set dressed as a Man-Thing like costume just for reference.
I hope he was. I just hope he was in a green screen suit and not in a fucking Man-Thing costume.
But they actually might. They might actually have done the Man-Thing costume because it actually helps with lighting and stuff these days for CGI stuff. But anyway, yeah. She points that way. He goes off to find him, and we see Elsa. The butler comes out. Oh, I will do anything for you, and she goes, "Yeah, clean the shit up, you crippled old man who's, hunched over like crazy." And he's like, "Okay, I guess he won't help you, bitch." Anyway, and she walks away. And she sits down, and she has the stone, and suddenly we get Wizard of Oz, all of.
Yeah, we get Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and as she's holding the gem in her hand, color starts to come back to the world.
This is the only thing that I would say makes me feel like this could be like the 80s and 90s, because it's very much film textured. Like, there is a grain to these scenes, especially when we then clip over to our boy Jack Russell.
He wakes up the next morning. Biggest
hangover of his life. A Man-Thing has made him a cup of tea. Very nice. They're doing the dude things. And how did you get with her? It's like, oh, you saved me, I saved you. It's just dudes, right? But like, if you look at like the sky and all, it is grainy texture. It makes it feel like it was recorded on cameras in the 80s and 90s. Now, look, this is still very 4K high definition recording, but they added a filter to make it look a little bit grainier. And yeah, they kind of then just pan to the sky and finish it. I would say this. I don't think this is a horror as in how we understand horror movies anymore. This is a Frankenstein horror movie kind of deal. Like,
it's not like, I would never say that this is scary. I say it has horror themes.
Yeah, I want to like go back in time, grab one of my ancestors, bring them in the future, and make them watch like Saw, and just say like how they react to it. Like, not even that Saw is a good movie, but like, like in comparison, like
no, the torture porn genre is a hell of a thing. To show to someone.
I think about a lot of time travel stuff where I just show people mobile phones and show them what to do, just fucking mess with them. And it's always my ancestors. I really want to fucking mess with them. Never mind.
But your personal ancestors.
Oh yeah, personal ancestors, like proper culty Irish people who are probably astounded by seeing tarmac roads.
Yeah. See, no, like that's the thing. I could never like. See, what I would like to do is I'd like to go back in time and tell my ancestors how to fucking get rich, so I could have that money in the future. But unfortunately, I could never count on that happening.
Yeah. Well, not
because they're fucking like they're my great grandfather's like a fucking poet farmer.
Yeah.
So,
but that's what I'm thinking. Like, I want to just mess with them. But yeah, so my main point before we got into this weird time travel bullying.
Yes, we're gonna bully people in the past. Don't worry about it.
This is a horror movie that you could watch with kids of a certain age. You could show it to all kids because they are, head implanted stuff and heads falling all over the place and blood. You wouldn't want to show this to like prepubescent kids anyway. But overall, there is no like horror tension. There's no suspense. Not really.
Yeah.
There's very still kind of a Marvel movie, really. Like, they sit down and talk.
It does attempt a jump scare or two, but not like in a major way.
Yeah. But yeah, there's. I think it's just a nice, fun experiment.
Yeah.
If they never go back to Werewolf by Night, I'm okay with that too. That's fine. It's not the end of the world. This is just like a nice little jaunt into some darker, fancy elements of the Marvel universe. And yeah, if you have a few minutes, if you have an hour spare, watch it.
And for a Halloween Marvel special as well, it works really well, I think. Specifically when you think of it as this is Marvel's Halloween special. And speaking of it being Marvel's Halloween special, we do have a Christmas special for Marvel coming in December
Guardians
as well.
of the Galaxy Christmas special, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's gonna be something.
They've done a few little specials in a way, like dancing wise and extended cuts releases and that kind of stuff. It'll be fun, you know.
Like I like the Guardians. I think they're fun. It's been a while since we've seen the Guardians.
Well, no, we saw them
in Thor: Love and Thunder, but
yeah.
I mean, like, it's been a while since we've seen the Guardians in detail, I guess to say.
Yeah.
Because like, I think Infinity War was the last time that they were properly themselves.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, they were in Love and Thunder, but they were like set dressing for Thor.
Yeah, I think that's everything, isn't it?
That's pretty much everything to say about Werewolf by Night. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I hope Marvel does more specials. I can't wait for their St. Patrick's Day special where we get introduced to Clover, I think is the character's name.
Oh, I can wait. But yeah, folks, look after yourself. And just as a little sideways, the Mario movie trailer looks fine, except for Mario. Chris Pratt should not have been voicing him. The CGI model looks a bit weird. That's all I have to say. I'm not going to argue. We're not going to be reviewing it. Maybe we'll watch the movie, but we'll see for now. Anyway, folks, have a good one. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
What's in the